United States is a vast country, and with all that space comes an incredible variety of landscapes, borders, climates, and quirks that make geography lovers like me endlessly fascinated. But along with the fun trivia and cool facts comes something else, a whole load of misconceptions. Some of these myths are harmless little mental mix-ups, while others are baked so deeply into the culture that people will swear they're true until you prove otherwise. And honestly, I get it. Geography can play tricks on the brain. So today, let's bust some myths. I'm going to walk you through 20 of the most persistent geography misconceptions about the United States and reveal the truth behind them. Stick around until number 20, because it's by far the most common and most stubborn myth of them all. 1. Canada is always north of the US. When we think of Canada, we think of the Great White North, snow, maple syrup, hockey, polar bears, and the general assumption that if you go north from the United States, you'll eventually hit Canada. But nope, that's not always true. If you're in Detroit, for example, the Canadian city of Windsor sits directly south of downtown. Thanks to a bend in the Detroit River, you actually drive south to cross into Canada, something that baffles tourists every year. And in Alaska, the situation gets even stranger. The state shares such a long, irregular border with Canada that depending on where you are, you might have to go east, not north, to cross into Canadian territory. So while Canada is certainly north in the big picture, sometimes it's the Great White South. 2. Key West is the southernmost point in the U.S. Visitors flock to Key West to snap selfies next to the famous buoy marked southernmost point in the continental U.S. But here's the catch. Key West isn't the southernmost point of the whole United States. That honor goes to Calais, or South Point, on Hawaii's Big Island, almost 1,000 miles farther south. And if we zoom out even more and include U.S. territories, the true southernmost point is a tiny, uninhabited atoll called Rose Atoll in American Samoa. So yes, Key West has bragging rights, but only for the contiguous 48 states. Beyond that, the Pacific wins the crown. 3. The Rockies are America's oldest mountains. Stand in front of the Rocky Mountains and you'll see towering, jagged peaks that look ancient and indestructible. That dramatic appearance makes many assume the Rockies must be the oldest mountains in the country. But geologically speaking, they're actually pretty young, teenagers, only 55–80 million years old. The real elders are the Appalachians, formed over 480 million years ago. Once as tall as the Himalayas, erosion has worn them down into the rounded, forested hills we see today. Think of it like this. The Rockies are teenagers full of energy, while the Appalachians are wise grandparents, softened by time, but still standing proud. 4. Upstate New York means everything north of New York City. If you're a New Yorker, you've definitely heard the debate. People from NYC often call anything north of Westchester County upstate. But ask someone from Buffalo, Albany, or Rochester, and they'll tell you that definition is way off. Upstate New York is a vague, often contested term. For some, it means the Adirondacks. For others, it includes the Finger Lakes, Hudson Valley, and even the Catskills. Each of these areas has its own identity, history, and culture, very different from one another. So, if you really want to annoy someone from Buffalo, just call their city upstate. 5. Los Angeles is the westernmost big city in the U.S. On a mental map, California hugs the Pacific, so naturally, people assume Los Angeles is the farthest west big city in the country. But here's the twist. It's not even close. That honor goes to Portland, Oregon, which sits farther west than San Diego, LA, San Francisco, and even Seattle. And fun fact, Reno, Nevada is actually farther west than Los Angeles, despite being inland. This is one of those mental map fails that makes you second-guess everything you thought you knew about geography. 6. Rivers only flow south. We imagine rivers snaking southward, pulled by gravity toward the Gulf of Mexico. But water doesn't flow south. It flows downhill, no matter the direction. In fact, several major U.S. rivers flow north. The St. Johns River in Florida runs north for 300 miles. The Red River of the North flows between Minnesota and North Dakota into Canada. So next time you hear south is down, remember, rivers don't read maps. 7. The Great Lakes are entirely American. The Great Lakes feel like a cornerstone of American geography, our third coast. But 4 of the 5 lakes are actually shared with Canada. Only Lake Michigan lies fully inside the U.S. This means fishing rights, shipping, and water usage are all bound by complex international agreements. These waters aren't just America's playground, they're shared space. 8. All deserts are hot, and sandy Hollywood taught us that deserts mean sand dunes and scorching sun. But the largest desert in the U.S., the Great Basin Desert, is nothing like that. Covering most of Nevada and stretching into Utah, Oregon, and Idaho, it's a cold desert with snowy winters, sagebrush, and rocky basins. Pack sunscreen, sure, but also bring a winter coat. 9. Rainforests only exist in the tropics. Say rainforest, and people imagine toucans, jaguars, and humid equatorial jungles. But the U.S. also has lush temperate rainforests in the Pacific Northwest. Western Washington, Oregon, and Alaska's coastlines boast some of the world's densest forests, moss-draped evergreens, giant Sitka spruce, and ecosystems so rich in biomass they rival the tropics. So no, you don't need to fly to the Amazon to experience rainforest magic. Just head to Olympic National Park. 10. Most of America is privately owned land. The U.S. prides itself on private property, but head west and the story changes dramatically. The federal government owns 47% of land in the 11 western states, with Nevada topping the charts at 80% federal land. That means forests, rangelands, and mountains are managed by agencies like the BLM and National Park Service, open for grazing, hiking, and camping. In a way, the West is one giant public backyard. 11. The geographic center of the U.S. is in Kansas. For decades, a monument near Lebanon, Kansas proudly claimed the title of Geographic Center of the U.S. But that was before Alaska and Hawaii joined in 1959. Today, the true center lies near Belfourche, South Dakota. It's a great reminder of how adding just 2 states reshaped the entire country's balance. 12. Big cities are always state capitals. It feels intuitive. New York City must be the capital of New York, Chicago, the capital of Illinois, and LA, the capital of California, right? Wrong. Instead, capitals are often smaller, centrally located cities chosen to keep political power separate from economic might. That's why New York has Albany, Illinois has Springfield, and California has Sacramento. Of course, there are exceptions: Atlanta, Denver, Phoenix, but in general, don't assume the biggest city runs the state. 13. The Mississippi is the longest river in the U.S. The mighty Mississippi looms large in our imagination, but technically, the Missouri River is longer, by just a single mile. Starting in Montana, it stretches 2,341 miles, edging out the Mississippi's 2,340. So maybe we should call it the mighty Missouri, though admittedly, it doesn't roll off the tongue as well. 14. The easternmost point of the U.S. is in Maine. Maine markets itself as the Sunrise State, and it's true for the lower 48. But the real easternmost point is Point Udall in Guam, a U.S. territory in the Pacific. And if you're sticking to just states, the title actually goes to Alaska's Aleutian Islands, which cross the 180th meridian into the Eastern Hemisphere. Geography loves to bend the rules. 15. Wyoming and Colorado are perfect rectangles. On maps, these states look like neat, four-sided boxes. But the Earth is a sphere, not flat, and longitude lines curve as they head north. That means both states are really trapezoids, with northern borders slightly shorter than their southern ones. Survey errors and irregularities make the edges even less perfect. In short, the rectangles aren't rectangles at all. 16. The Everglades are a swamp. The word swamp conjures murky, stagnant water. But Florida's Everglades are actually a slow-moving river of grass, 60 miles wide, a few inches deep, flowing from Lake Okeechobee toward the Gulf of Mexico. It's one of the most unique ecosystems on Earth, home to crocodiles, manatees, and panthers. And it's alive, constantly moving, however slowly. 17. The Midwest is completely flat drive across Nebraska or Iowa, and you'll swear the land is flat as a tabletop. But zoom out, and the Midwest hides plenty of dramatic features. The Ozark Plateau in Missouri, the Black Hills of South Dakota, the driftless area of Wisconsin and Minnesota, carved into deep valleys and bluffs. Sure, compared to the Rockies, it's flatter, but it's far from featureless. 18. The Colorado River still reaches the sea. We picture the Colorado carving the Grand Canyon and rushing toward the Gulf of California. But today, the river is so overallocated by dams and diversions that it no longer reaches the ocean. By the time it flows through Arizona, Nevada, and California, it's been tapped for drinking water and irrigation. In Mexico, the once lush delta has largely dried up. A river that shaped landscapes for millions of years now disappears into sand before it can finish its journey. 19. Tornado Alley is an official zone. Say Tornado Alley, and most people picture Kansas, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. But the term is more media invention than meteorological fact. Tornadoes strike across much of the U.S. every year, including Dixie Alley in the southeast, where storms are often deadlier due to population density and hilly terrain. In reality, tornadoes have been recorded in all 50 states. So yes, the plains are high risk, but no place is truly safe from twisters. 20. Alaska is bigger than half the U.S. combined. Look at a Mercator map, and Alaska seems to rival the entire continental U.S. in size. This is due to projection distortion. Areas near the poles get stretched to cartoonish proportions. The truth? Alaska is huge, 585,000 square miles, but the lower 48 states are nearly 3 million square miles. Alaska takes up about 1/6 of the landmass, not half. Still, Alaska is enormous. If you placed it over the lower 48, it would stretch from Florida to California, just not as absurdly huge as the maps make it look. Geography is full of illusions. Some come from maps, others from history, and many from our own mental shortcuts. The U.S. is so vast and varied that misconceptions are almost inevitable. But hopefully, after today, you'll be armed with better facts and some great trivia to impress your friends. From Canada being south, to deserts that freeze, to rivers that flow uphill, at least in our heads, America's geography is more surprising than most people realize. Because in the end, geography isn't just about maps, it's about the way we understand the world, and how often that understanding can lead us astray.